I'm here today with Barb Roose. Barb is a literary agent at Books and Such Literary Agency, and she loves partnering with aspiring established authors to achieve their publishing career goals. With experience as an award-winning pharmaceutical sales representative and executive leader in the megachurch environment, Barb embraces the challenges and opportunities that agenting in Christian publishing offers. As an author, Barb understands the tensions and triumphs embedded in the publishing process. Her heartbeat is helping others achieve their goals, as well as increasing representation and publishing opportunities for people of color. Barb represents both adult fiction and nonfiction, with an emphasis on nonfiction, and she welcomes queries that meet agency submission guidelines at booksandsuch.com. So Barb, thank you so much for joining us today.
Brian, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
So, maybe you can give folks a little bit more insight than what I, briefly just mentioned in terms of how you got to where you are today.
Well, first, I am thankful to have this conversation. Like many of the listeners, the road into the publishing industry is a unique journey for everyone. I began writing as a little brown-skinned kid in a little journal that my mom gave me, and I thought everyone liked to write. I didn't see any authors that look like me. I just knew I liked to write. And so writing has just been a theme throughout my entire life. Even though I went into the business world, I do have a degree in English, but that's only because I love to write. Not great at grammar. God bless editors. But I had just lived life. And one of the things that has always resonated with me was just this idea of being open-handed. Not being holding on too tightly to any particular career or job, because in order for me to begin in publishing, I had to let go of a great career. I had to let go of financial security. I had to let go of a corner office and influence. But that was the challenge that God put before me. And so I became a full-time speaker and author in January of 2016. I'm primarily a Bible study author. I write trade books in between. But since my first book in March of 2015, as of December 2020, I have written 8 projects. The 8th will be released in April. And then I became a literary agent in August of this year.
Wow. Well, that's fantastic. I mean, the fact that you've got such a business background and an author background, before entering the role of an agent, I think it has got to be really helpful.
It does. And I mean, my pharmaceutical years were wonderful. I learned about sales and building relationships, but tucked in there between pharmaceutical sales and my years working in ministry at a megachurch, there was a season where I ran a couple of nonprofits shortly. And I term those years the dark years, Brian. I think that everybody has a set of dark years in their lives. So those dark years also taught me about the things I needed to know to be resilient. And then let's just be honest, just straight up fall on your face, flat failure. So those lessons, and those weren't the only fail times in life, but all of the lessons that we learn, they can become part of the stepping stones that are a part of the journey that we're all on, that opens up opportunities if we're willing to accept them.
I couldn't agree more. I was with a couple of startup companies in high tech that went under too, didn't make it. And, it's like after you go through some of those kinds of experiences, it really does help you, I think, for anything else that gets thrown your way in the future.
Absolutely. I remember at the time when I was the executive director of one nonprofit, it was over the season of September 11th. And here I was the chief development director for an organization. And at the time, philanthropy went to New York City. And I remember standing there and board members asking how I was going to raise funds. And really, it was a gift. I mean, I was in my 20s. And I thought that, I just come off of this hotshot career in sales, and I thought I was invincible. And then I discovered that I wasn't. And for a long time afterwards, I felt the burn of that failure. And, 20 years later, there is deep gratitude for having to go through that. Deep gratitude for being able to see the limits of my abilities, to be able to know that I can take risks and fail and the world won't end. All of those things are so, so valuable in publishing.
Wow. Wow. Very cool. Well, as one of my friends had said once, turning lemons into lemonade.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about, becoming an agent and, what that looks like for you now.
It was one of those moves that I didn't see coming. I have been with my agency, Books and Such Literary Management. It's owned by Janet Grant, who has been in the industry in Christian publishing for many years. She is an author herself. She was an editor. She was a publisher of an imprint. She contacted me. It was in late May 2020. And I have been, again, with Books and Such since 2014. Rochelle Gardner is my agent. And when Janet called me, I wasn't exactly sure she even knew who I was. I'm what I like to call, I'm a working class author. I recognize I am grateful that I have been able to be traditionally published and receive contracts without too much stress. I mean, I'm a working class kind of author. But when Janet called, she just said, we've been thinking about your background. We had been watching the connections that you've made in publishing and the breadth of connections that you have with authors. I do most of my career is centered around speaking, and I have usually speak anywhere from 35 to 40 times a year. So she said, you just have a lot of connections, and we believe that agenting could be a good fit for you. Are you interested? And my first internal response was no, simply because I really I couldn't see myself in the role. But then Janet said something that changed everything. She said, really what agenting is about is helping people achieve their career goals in publishing. And from that point, I was like, well, alrighty, sign me up. Because one of my core values in life has always been to help others be successful, whether that looks like times when I've trained others, times when I've sat across from someone with a cup of coffee, coaching, connecting people with other relationships. Those are all a key part of who I am. And I realize that that's a key part of the agenting process. So it was a privilege for me to accept it. And it just so happened that, yes, it comes at a time when Christian publishing they've known for a long time that voices of diversity need to be elevated. And there has been a desire, but now there is an intentionality and a commitment. There are publishers who are putting money where their words have been. And that is very exciting now that we're entering into a renewed commitment, really as a people, to go, we need to do better, y'all. We need to do better now.
That's so good to hear. It's like when I started publishing a couple of years ago, I had heard a lot of the publishing industry people say, well, we realize this problem, we don't know what to do about it. And now I think, like you said, there's not just talk about doing something, they're actually doing something about it. So it's perfect timing, I think, for you. And I think it's overdue for the industry, but at least it's finally seemed to be happening.
It is, and the benefit is for all of us. This isn't a benefit where there can be a scarcity mentality, I believe, that we have to be careful for, especially as Christians, that we in publishing, because it is competitive. It is hard to get a traditionally published contract. Platform is always a challenge for everyone. So there may be the feeling amongst all sides where if we open the door more for more voices, then that limits opportunities for the individual. And the question still comes down to, do you trust God or not? Because publishers want to publish outstanding books. Part of this increased awareness to be intentional about bringing in diverse voices of color are because the connection systems have been limited in many ways to just the majority culture. So now we're recognizing that there are vast amounts of Black people and people of color who like to read books. The connection systems just have not connected to them. Whenever we open the doors wider, more opportunities, a rising tide always lifts all ships.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, you and I are such in alignment on all those things that you just said. And, so we're making some progress. We'll make more.
We're getting there.
So what suggestions do you have for authors who would like to work with you?
When I'm interviewing new clients, and the great part about being a newer agent is that I spend a lot of time interviewing new clients. It's super fun, making connections with hopeful and established authors. I developed a framework that I essentially call green light, yellow light, red light. I borrowed this from my middle daughter's 25 now, but when she was in kindergarten, her teacher used to have a board with all of their names on it. And in that board, there were pockets for each child. Each pocket had 3 laminated rectangles, a red, a yellow, and a green. And those symbolized essentially opportunity. So when I'm talking with hopeful authors or established authors, I evaluate their opportunities based on that red light, yellow light, green light system. And there's 3 different opportunities I'm looking at. The first is, do they have a wow concept? And a wow concept essentially is, if they are pitching a project to me, does it make me want to lean into them? Does it make me want to kind of like do that, what I call the ostrich head, and move my head around a little bit and like, hey, what's happening here? Does their idea I want to do a 2 snaps and a twist? We know that there's nothing new under the sun, but there always are creative ways of looking at a topic. We see this happen in music all of the time. People have been singing about love and heartache for next to forever, but new music is being created all of the time because artists find new ways to creatively express it. And the same happens with books. So I'm looking for a wow concept. The second is, I call it woo. What is it about that person that attracts me to them when I talk to them? And I'm not looking for a prospective author to look Instagram professional or to be the person that wins the room. But woo, is there a passion behind their writing? Is there a devotedness to the topic? Is there a commitment to them wanting to take on the adventure of traditional publishing? So I'm looking for woo. And when if I have to drill it down, am I seeing the authentic person when I'm having a conversation with them for the first time? And then the last thing I'm looking at is platform. And we have all types of ways to define platform. I simply define it as, I'm looking at who they are influencing. And within that, the subtext of that is, who are they trying to reach? Is that an audience that a publisher is going to say, hey, we're trying to reach that audience too? And then also, how well have they connected with that audience? So those 3 opportunities, a green light is, they are growing and doing great. A yellow light is, hey, we need to ask some more questions. And a red light is this working? Do we need to redirect? Do we need to recharge? Or do we need to shift into what we're doing?
So Barb, what would you see right now as the biggest challenges for newer writers?
Probably the wow concept and platform. Brian, you and I both talk with individuals all the time who have a desire to write, and many who have a story to share. One of the delicate tensions that we as agents, that we balance is, we want to honor someone's story. We want to honor particularly the challenge, the adversity that someone has overcome. And it matters, and their story is meaningful. But there is a difference between meaningful and the process of mass publishing. And in that, as an agent, we want to make sure that we're able to help someone see where their story is meaningful and to be able to connect with the audience that's going to make a difference. And then to be able to identify the stories that we go, there's a broader public that can benefit from this story. So that's the first part, is helping someone see where their story is positioned and understand the opportunities or the limitations in traditionally published for that story. And then the second one is platform. There are millions, hundreds of millions of people who live in America. We all have opportunities for platform, but it's educating people on how to grow it and what's needed for traditional publishing, and that platform isn't a limitation. It's actually an author necessity.
Wonderful. So what kind of advice do you have for authors, what they should focus on? Again, especially folks that are in the early stage.
Well, this is the advice that an agent gives kind of depends on the day. So on this particular day, if I had to choose the most important thing, it is to know exactly who you are. And the reason why you want to know exactly who you are is because traditional publishing has so many challenges. And you want to have a bedrock, an anchor that holds you firm as you have to try new things on different days, when you're trying new marketing, or when you're going to conferences, or perhaps dealing with rejection, or you're putting yourself out there in new ways with new products. So when you know who you are, you have an understanding that your worth, your worthiness, your value, your existence on this planet does not hinge on what happens in your publishing career. Again, I'm a working author. If my publishing career disappeared tomorrow, I would be sad about it. But it's not the end all be all to who I am. If agenting disappeared tomorrow, that's not the end all be all of who I am. So my advice would be to become super firm in knowing who you are, confident that you value, that you matter, that your self-esteem and self-worth isn't dependent on that book proposal or that book idea that you are passionate about.
Wonderful. So Barb, I know you're going to be taking part in our upcoming Publishing in Color conference. Our next online conference is going to be in April of 2021. So I'm really looking forward to having you involved in that.
Thank you. I am excited. You have created an experience for hopeful authors, authors who self-published, authors who are trying to figure out the publishing journey. Again, as an author, I still attend writers' conferences myself. We all have so much to learn from each other. So I'm looking forward to learning from the other presenters. I'm looking forward to making connections with the individuals that attend. There are always new streams of opportunity when we put ourselves in new environment. And just signing up for a conference, just by virtue of signing up and showing up, an attendee is opening themselves up to really the extraordinary. It's what they never saw coming, and that we should all embrace that.
Well, Barb, I really want to thank you for joining us, and I really wish you the best in your new endeavor as an agent. I'm very excited to watch you and how that all progresses. So thank you for taking that step into this new kind of role where you can help more people.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been fun, and we're just going to see what happens next.